The following presentation is brought to you by Discovery Channel School, a leading provider of quality educational resources that help teachers bring the world to their students.
Africa is the second largest continent with 1/5 of the world's land area. In the north, Africa is bordered by the Mediterranean Sea, on the east by the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean, and on the west by the Atlantic Ocean. Africa has the world's largest desert, the Sahara, which runs almost coast to coast. It rarely rains here, and few people make their homes in this region. The desert divides the continent culturally between northern and sub-Saharan Africa. Most of the people who live north of the Sahara are Arabs, and most living south of it are black Africans. Below the Sahara, the continent gets more rain, and the landscape gradually changes to vast grassland areas called savannas. Here, people raise cattle and tend their herds. In the east runs Africa's longest river, the Nile. Beginning at Lake Victoria, it flows north 4,000 miles before emptying into the Mediterranean Sea. The equator runs through Africa. In the west lies a dense rainforest that receives as much as 60 inches of rain every year. It's a humid, lush home for some of Africa's varied wildlife. Further east along the equator is Africa's most distinctive feature, the Great Rift Valley, an enormous depression in the Earth's crust that was created as a result of prehistoric volcanic activity. Here is Africa's largest lake, Lake Victoria, and its highest mountain, Mount Kilimanjaro. The grasslands of this region contain large herds of wild elephants, zebras, and antelope, as well as predators such as lions and cheetah. In the southern part of Africa is the Kalahari Desert. Most of this large sandy basin lies in the country of Botswana, but it also covers the eastern third of Namibia. Although it is very dry, this desert receives more rain than the Sahara. Africa has some 52 countries, more than any other continent. It is home to more than 740 million people. The country of Egypt straddles the Nile in the northeast. Algeria lies on the northwestern corner of this continent, bordering the Mediterranean Sea. Kenya, Ethiopia, and Tanzania are in the east. The country of South Africa sits at the southern tip of the continent. Congo is located in the central part of Africa. And in the west lie Nigeria, Mali, and Ghana. Africa boasts a unique geography that is home to a large variety of wildlife and peoples. And as a continent, it has the fastest growing population in the world today.
North Africa is bounded by the Atlantic Ocean on the west, the Mediterranean Sea on the north, and the Red Sea on the east. To the south, the region is cut off from the rest of the continent by the world's largest desert, the Sahara. North Africa consists of Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya. While Egypt is often considered part of the Middle East, most of its landmass is located in North Africa. Egypt's most important physical feature is the Nile River. It is the longest river in the world, beginning south of the equator and flowing north through the entire length of Egypt before emptying into the Mediterranean Sea. Cairo is the capital of Egypt. It is a noisy, bustling city of 16 million people. Arabic is the official language, but many Egyptians also speak English and French. The Nile River Valley was the seat of one of the earliest civilizations. The pyramids at Giza, just south of Cairo, are architectural marvels. Pharaohs, the kings of ancient Egypt, began building the stone structures around 2500 BC. The largest pyramid is made of 2.3 million blocks of limestone, some weighing as much as 9 tons. The pyramids were built to house the tombs of the pharaohs. Archaeologists now know that they were part of a massive burial site that included space for wives, relatives, and other nobles, as well as temples where the dead kings could be worshipped. The Sphinx, the massive limestone sculpture with the body of a lion and the head of a man, is believed to be the guardian spirit for the burial complex of the pharaoh Khafra. The ancient Egyptian civilization flourished for more than 3,000 years, longer than most other civilizations in the world's history. Today, Egypt is among the most influential of Arab states in North Africa and the world. Chad is located in north-central Africa, and Sudan is located in northeastern Africa. Sudan borders Libya in the northwest, Egypt to the north, the Red Sea to the northeast, Eritrea and Ethiopia to the east, Kenya, Uganda, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo to the south, and the Central African Republic and Chad to the west. Chad borders Libya to the north, Sudan to the east, the Central African Republic to the south, and Cameroon, Nigeria, and Niger to the west. The capital of Chad is N'Djamena, and the capital of Sudan is Khartoum. Sudan is the largest country in Africa, covering more than 8% of the continent. Approximately 5,000 years ago, a civilization known as Nubia developed along the banks of the Nile, from modern-day Aswan, Egypt to Khartoum. Also known as the Kingdom of Kush, this empire rivaled ancient Egypt in power and wealth. Both civilizations took turns occupying the other, and they grew to be partners in trade and enemies in war. Nubians were skilled warriors, known for their archery skills. Their rulers were powerful kings and strong queens. Members of royal families were buried in small, steep-sided pyramids. Inscriptions in chapels in front of the pyramids gave details about the life of the person buried inside. Around 600 BC, the Nubians moved their capital to the city of Meroe to escape an Egyptian invasion. Archaeologists are learning more about this Meroitic period by studying an area near the modern city of Dan Gale, which means red brick rubble. They have discovered a huge, well-preserved temple dedicated to the ram-headed god Amun. The Meroitic language is one of the last undeciphered languages in the world. Although scholars know how to pronounce individual signs, they do not fully understand the texts. Sudan's ancient Nubian civilization poses many mysteries for the rest of the world to solve.
Libya is located on the Mediterranean coast of North Africa. It is bordered by Tunisia and Algeria to the west, Niger and Chad to the south, and Sudan and Egypt to the east. The arid plains of the Sahara dominate the geography of Libya in the south. Arabic is the official language, and the majority of the people are Sunni Muslims. The capital, Tripoli, is located on the coast in the northwestern region of the country. The city is home to official buildings, theaters, and hotels, as well as the former royal palace. Libya enjoys the highest level of economic productivity in Africa, thanks to oil production. But the economy suffered through most of the 1990s because the United Nations imposed sanctions. The world body imposed the restrictions after Libya refused to hand over 2 men suspected of planting a bomb on a United States airliner that exploded over Lockerbie, Scotland, and killed 270 people. In 1999, Libya agreed to let the 2 men stand trial in the Netherlands, and the sanctions were lifted. The U.S. continues to impose its own economic sanctions, in part because it claims Libya sponsors terrorism. Recently, the Libyan government announced it would abandon its programs to build weapons of mass destruction. By dismantling its weapons program, Libya hopes the international community will end all trade sanctions so it can begin to recover economically.
Mauritania is located in northwestern Africa. It is bordered to the west by the Atlantic Ocean and Western Sahara, to the northeast by Algeria, to the west and south by Mali, and to the south by Senegal. The capital, Nouakchott, is located in the southwestern region along the Atlantic coast. 60% of Mauritania is covered by the Sahara, the largest desert in the world, and it's still growing. As the desert spreads south and west, it increases its occupation of Mauritania. The human population is small for a country this size, but there's plenty of room for fascinating desert creatures like the carpet viper snake and the spiny-tailed lizard that live in sandy dunes. And though it's hard to believe, Mauritania is also home to crocodiles. They rarely venture far from water, but these animals have made a home for themselves in the wetlands along the edge of the Sahara. Scientists believe they're the descendants of crocodiles that were common in the area thousands of years ago, when the Sahara was fertile grassland. Over time, the croc's behavior and genetic makeup have adapted to their surroundings. Today, they are much smaller and less aggressive than their relative, the Nile crocodile. During the dry season and periods of drought, the crocodiles live in burrows and caves, limiting their movements to retain moisture. The Mauritanian people have protected their crocodiles from the world's view for thousands of years. They hold the belief that the crocodiles are linked to the country's limited water supply, and if the crocodiles disappear, so would all the water in the region.
Morocco is located in northwestern Africa, across the Strait of Gibraltar from Spain. It is the only African country with coast on both the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. To the east lies Algeria, and to the south, Western Sahara, a former Spanish colony that Morocco is trying to take over. The Atlas Mountains form a backbone that extends from the southwest to the northeast. In the southeast lies the Sahara Desert, while plains and plateaus dominate the area west of the mountains. The capital, Rabat, is located on the northwest Atlantic coast, at the mouth of the Bou Regreg River. In Morocco, you can easily find sand, sea, and snow. The coastal areas enjoy Mediterranean-style weather, with mild, wet winters and warm, dry summers. Ocean breezes help moderate the temperature, but winds from the Sahara may push the thermometer above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, even on the coast. The majority of Morocco's population is concentrated in the coastal region and in the foothills of the Atlas Mountains, where rainfall is most plentiful. Almost all Moroccans are Muslim and speak Arabic, the official language. But Morocco is actually the product of many peoples: Berber, African, Arab, Islamic, Jewish, and European. The Berbers were the earliest inhabitants of the country, and they make up approximately 60% of the modern population. Today, they usually live in rural areas where they farm or raise animals. Some are nomads. The Berbers guard their independence fiercely, maintaining their own languages and local customs. The ancient city of Marrakesh is one of Morocco's most important cultural centers. It is well known for its markets and festivals. The place Jemaa el-Fnaa, a huge square in Marrakesh's old city district, is home to rows of open-air food stalls. Jugglers, contortionists, and even snake charmers entertain visitors. From the ocean to the desert, Morocco is a vibrant country with a unique place among the peoples and cultures of Africa.
Algeria is a large North African country just south of the Mediterranean Sea. It is more than 3 times the size of Texas and shares its borders with 6 other countries: Morocco, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Libya, and Tunisia. Almost all of Algeria is in the Sahara, one of the most harsh and unforgiving deserts in the world. But plants still grow even in this barren place. Fertile areas are scattered throughout the Sahara. These are called oases. Ouled Said is not a naturally occurring oasis, but that doesn't matter to the people who live here. Thanks to the water found underground, farmers can grow food for themselves, graze livestock, and produce dates, small sweet-tasting fruits. It may seem hard to believe, but these desert harvests are so bountiful that Algeria has become one of the largest producers of the fruit. But these harvests can't happen without a supply of precious water. The ancient secret for moving water from one place to another is called a fogara. Fogaras are holes that bring water from underground reservoirs to the surface. Fogaras like these have been used for centuries in many places around the world. Building fogaras takes time and skill. First, someone must find an underground water source. Then a long plate, called a kazria, is pushed through the ground until it hits an underground reservoir. The water bubbles to the surface and runs into gardens through channels. The water passes from one hole to another, and small storage wells keep the water fresh and cool. Fogaras are simple tools, but it takes a lot of skill to use them, and they have helped to turn Algeria into a place where life can flourish.
Egypt is an African country bordered by the Mediterranean Sea. This giant country is more than 3 times the size of New Mexico and shares its borders with Libya to the west, Sudan to the south, Saudi Arabia and the Red Sea to the east, and Israel to the northeast. The history of Egypt goes back to the year 3200 BC, when the Egyptian king Menes started the first royal dynasty. While pharaohs, wars, and great conquerors have all come and gone, one thing remains, the very heart of this ancient civilization, the Nile River. The Nile is the longest river in the world. It stretches 6,694 kilometers from Central Africa to the Mediterranean Sea. The Nile River cuts through the barren Egyptian desert, creating a fertile strip of land where farmers can grow crops of corn, wheat, beans, fruits, and vegetables. The Nile River is the reason for Egypt's agricultural success and wealth. The Nile overflows yearly, and when it does, it brings rich minerals called silt to the riverbanks. The silt makes the land fertile. Silt is very important to people living in Egypt, but the ancient planting and harvesting techniques used by the fellahin, or farmers, have had as much to do with the land's fertility as the river itself. When the Nile overflows, the fellahin work together to use the precious water to irrigate the land. The nutrients in the silt fertilize the crops. Today, farmers make up about 29% of Egypt's workforce. Many farms in Egypt are small, and the fellahin plant and harvest crops as they have for thousands of years. Egypt's fellahin produce rice, wheat, and beans, as well as cotton, dates, and citrus fruits. But population growth, water pollution, and the loss of silt caused by massive dams are changing the way the fellahin have always lived and worked. For now, Egypt's fellahin continue to live in harmony with the Nile River, producing crops for domestic use and export. But as the desert nation's population and ecology continue to change, the fellahin's way of life may someday disappear.
Western Africa includes the countries lying south of the Sahara and east and north of the Atlantic Ocean. The region is divided into 2 parallel belts of land. The western portion of the Sudan, a geographic area that stretches across the entire width of Africa, and the coastal region, or Guinea Coast. The nations of the western Sudan include Cape Verde, the Gambia, Senegal, Mauritania, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Chad. The nations of the Guinea Coast are Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, Togo, Benin, Nigeria, Cameroon, and Equatorial Guinea. Accra is the largest city in Ghana, a densely populated country of more than 20 million people. Ghana is made up of a former British colony known as the Gold Coast and part of a territory called Togoland. In 1957, it became the first country in colonial Africa to gain its independence. After years of turmoil, Ghana emerged as a democracy in the 1990s. The country's many ethnic groups hold colorful festivals throughout the year to celebrate their local histories and cultures. Some festivals mark the harvest or start of a new year. Others are a time for people to remember their ancestors. The festival of Fetu Afashe is celebrated in Ghana's Cape Coast, 90 miles west of Accra. This harvest festival also commemorates the country's first contact with European settlers. The annual parade includes drumming, dancing, and musket firing. Traditional tribal kings, clothed in vibrant robes, are carried shoulder high on platforms through the streets of Cape Coast. The tradition also includes making sacrifices and offerings to the 77 gods of the land for a bountiful harvest. For the people of Ghana, it is important to show they will not forget their past as they embrace their future.
Burkina Faso is a landlocked country in Western Africa. It is bordered by Mali to the west and north, Niger to the east, Benin to the southeast, and Togo, Ghana, and Côte d'Ivoire to the south. Benin is a small, narrow country on the Atlantic coast. It borders Nigeria to the east, Niger and Burkina Faso to the north, and Togo to the west. Benin's capital is Porto Novo, but Cotonou is the country's chief port and largest city. Burkina Faso, known as Upper Volta before 1984, is geographically in the Sahel, which is the agricultural region between the Sahara and the coastal rainforest. The capital city of Ouagadougou is located in the center of the country. Burkina Faso is one of the poorest countries in the world, with the majority of the population living in rural areas. Water supply is a problem in Burkina Faso. Less than 10% of the land can be farmed without irrigation. With the help of international organizations, villagers are learning new ways to manage land resources. To keep the land fertile, farmers build stone barriers around their fields to trap water and soil runoff. They also dig small, shallow holes, fill them with compost and manure, and then plant crop seeds. The holes catch water that would otherwise wash away. Deep wells or boreholes provide clean drinking water, which helps keep villagers healthy. By practicing better land management and developing mineral resources, Burkina Faso is working towards a brighter future. Cameroon is sometimes called the hinge of Africa because of its position between the western and central regions of the continent. It is bordered by the Atlantic Ocean and Nigeria to the west, Chad and the Central African Republic on the east, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Gabon, and Equatorial Guinea to the south. It is about 180,000 square miles in area. That's slightly larger than California. Cameroon is one of the most geographically diverse countries in Africa, covering 3 major zones: the northern savanna, the southern and eastern rainforest, and the northwestern hill region near Nigeria. The capital, Yaoundé, is located in the south-central region of the country. Yaoundé is the bustling urban center of Cameroon's economy. Oil refining and crude oil products from offshore drilling lead the nation's industries. While that has led to a decline in agriculture, farming still accounts for about a third of the country's economic output. Cameroon is one of the world's leading cocoa producers. In the less developed northern regions, the chief occupation is raising cattle. Cameroon has been described as a racial crossroads. With more than 200 ethnic groups, the country has one of the most diverse populations in Africa. English and French are the country's official languages, but people in more than 200 ethnic groups speak 24 major African languages. About 40% of the people practice a variety of traditional religions. Another 40% are Christian, and Muslims make up the remaining 20%. Every ethnic community in Cameroon has its own musical traditions. The songs and dances not only form a vital part of local customs, but contribute to making Cameroonian music popular throughout Africa. Cameroon is a country with such a rich variety of ethnic groups and natural environments that it has earned another nickname, Africa in miniature. Côte d'Ivoire is located in Western Africa along the Atlantic coast. It is bordered by Ghana to the east, Burkina Faso and Mali to the north, and Guinea and Liberia to the west. The northern half of the country consists of plateaus, while lagoons dominate the eastern portion of the coastal region. Equatorial forests and savannas are present in the north. The extreme western region is mountainous, and it includes Côte d'Ivoire's highest point, Mount Nimba, on the Guinean border. The official capital is Yamoussoukro, located on the banks of Lake Kassou. But the former capital of Abidjan is still the government's administrative center and the country's largest city. Since the 1960s, Côte d'Ivoire, a leading producer of cocoa, has been one of the most prosperous of the tropical African countries. But in 1999, a coup that overthrew its president sparked years of military and political turmoil that continues today. The army has been fighting off rebels in the northern part of the country since 2002, when the rebels' candidate for president was barred from the election. Supporters of the current president say they're concerned about the large number of immigrants in their country, so they passed a law stating that presidential candidates must be born in Côte d'Ivoire and that both parents must be Ivorian. The opposition leader insists he is fully Ivorian, but his opponents claim he was born in Burkina Faso. Both sides signed a truce in January 2003, but it has not been fully implemented. A multinational peacekeeping force remains in the country, working to help restore order. The Gambia and Senegal are located in West Africa along the Atlantic coast. The Gambia is the smallest country in Africa, just 200 miles long and 30 miles wide. It is bisected by the Gambia River and, except for its coastline, lies completely within Senegal. The capital city of Banjul is on a small island at the mouth of the river. Senegal is bounded by Mauritania to the north, Mali to the east, Guinea and Guinea-Bissau to the south, and the Atlantic Ocean to the west. The Senegal River defines much of the country's northern and eastern borders. On the west is the capital of Dakar, one of the busiest ports in Africa. Dakar is a modern, bustling city on the Atlantic coast. French colonists established it there in 1857 when they built a fort. Today, Dakar is the country's largest city and the center of its economic life. The people of Senegal belong to many ethnic groups, including the Wolof, Fulani, Serer, Tukulor, Soninke, Malinke, and Diola. French is the country's official language, and more than 90% of the people are Muslim. Senegal is primarily an agricultural country. Many of the people who live in Senegal's rural villages are subsistence farmers. The northernmost part of Senegal is arid, lying along the Sahara Desert, which is slowly spreading southward. Desertification, when fertile land becomes desert, and deforestation, the clearing of trees, have badly affected Senegal. Villagers now plant trees and practice better land management to prevent further environmental problems. Family, neighbors, and companionship are very important in Senegal. Dancing is woven into all social celebrations, illustrating a vibrant and lively cultural heritage. Guinea is located in Western Africa. It is bordered by Guinea-Bissau on the northwest, Senegal to the north, Mali to the north and east, Cote d'Ivoire to the southeast, Liberia and Sierra Leone to the south, and the Atlantic Ocean to the west. Guinea is a humid and tropical country, with the coastal region marked by inlets, estuaries, and the Kaloum Peninsula in the south. Most of Guinea's population is Muslim, but a small, influential percentage is Roman Catholic. Conakry is the country's capital and major port. Despite a wealth of natural resources, Guinea remains underdeveloped and plagued by poverty. Infant mortality is high. About half the population does not have access to drinkable water. The problems worsened in recent years as refugees from Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Cote d'Ivoire poured into Guinea seeking to escape civil wars in their own countries. At one point, the number of refugees was estimated at more than 1 million. The fighting has also occasionally spilled across the border into Guinea, forcing tens of thousands of Guineans to flee their homes. Most of the refugees from Sierra Leone have returned to their country, but as many as 100,000 refugees remain in Guinea. International aid organizations are working to help manage the crisis.
Sierra Leone is located in West Africa. It is bordered on the north and east by Guinea, on the south by Liberia, and on the west by the Atlantic Ocean. The country can be divided into 4 geographic regions: the coastal swamp region, the interior plains, the plateau region, and the Loma Mountains. The capital is Freetown, and it is one of the world's largest natural harbors. In 1787, an English abolitionist selected the area as a haven for freed African slaves. The town was formally founded in 1792, when 1,100 freed slaves settled here. Today, the descendants of those slaves are known as Creoles, or Creos. They live alongside Sierra Leone's 2 main indigenous groups: the Mendi, who live in the central and southern parts of the country, and the Temni, who live in the north. The economy of Sierra Leone is largely dependent on subsistence agriculture. Palm oil, palm kernels, cocoa, and coffee are the main cash crops. Diamonds and iron ore are central to the country's mining industry. Sierra Leone experienced a 10-year civil war that ended with a peace agreement signed on July 7, 1999. The country is rebuilding its economy and infrastructure and hopes to return to its position as a stable, thriving West African nation.
The Republic of Ghana lies on the Gulf of Guinea in West Africa and borders Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, and Togo. Although it's slightly smaller than the state of Oregon, Ghana has many natural resources. A tropical forest belt covers the southern third of Ghana. These forests produce much of the country's cocoa, minerals, and timber. But many of the people of Ghana are sacrificing their valuable forests. Poverty and population pressures are forcing people to cut down more and more of the tropical rainforest. Cutting down large sections of forest is called deforestation. Since 1981, Ghana's forests have been reduced to just 1/4 of their original size. The main reason the trees are being cut down is to sell them to the timber industry. In Ghana's cash-starved economy, selling trees is a quick way to earn money. Today, timber is Ghana's 3rd largest export. But Ghana's timber industry is very inefficient. While most developed countries use up to 95% of each tree that's cut down, Ghana uses less than 1/4. After taking the trunk, the rest of the tree is often left to rot. And unlike other countries that face deforestation problems, it isn't large companies that are removing the trees, it's mainly individual farmers. Ghana's people are moving deeper into forested areas too, to escape droughts and growing deserts, or to find better farmland. When they get to a new part of the forest, they often cut down and burn the trees to create new farms to grow their crops. This is called slash and burn, and although this technique quickly clears the land, it also removes nutrients from the soil and has pushed many native species of plants close to extinction.
With the slash and burn technology, farmers are moving every 2 to 3 years. If his farming life is 30 years, he will have moved 10 times, at least. So it means 50 acres of rainforest gone. Whereas, if he was doing better agriculture, better soil management, he would have been using the same 5 acres over that 30-year period.
But some local groups are trying to reduce deforestation. Here, 600 acres of deforested land are being replanted with native herbs for medicines. Since most Ghanaians prefer herbal medicines, this project could revitalize the area, protecting the native plants from extinction and restoring the balance between environment and the people who depend on it to make a living. But these smaller programs can't do it alone, and the trees continue to disappear. To combat this problem, the government has made regulations that require newly deforested areas to be replanted with trees. Given enough time, Ghana's rainforest will eventually regenerate and regrow. The question is there enough time?
The Republic of Mali is a former French colony located in West Africa, bordering on Algeria, Niger, Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, Guinea, Senegal, and Mauritania. Mali is nearly twice the size of Texas and is the largest country in West Africa. Mali is also one of the poorest countries in the world. 65% of Mali's land is desert or semi-desert. This land is too dry to grow crops, although some is used for grazing animals. But crops can grow in the south of the country, near the Niger and Senegal rivers. The Niger River floods every year and leaves behind a rich soil good for growing crops. Farmers here grow rice, wheat, corn, and a pale shiny grain called millet. This fertile region is why some people call Mali the grain basket of West Africa. More than 80% of Mali's workers are subsistence farmers. This means they only grow crops to feed themselves. But when there's good rainfall, many farmers also grow cotton, peanuts, and other crops they can sell. Mali gained independence from France in 1960. The people installed a socialist system where the government controlled the production and distribution of the country's goods. But socialism slowed down Mali's economy and often led to corruption. In 1992, Mali held its first democratic presidential election. The new government made political and economic reforms to help the economy grow again. One of these changes was to let farmers sell their crops at higher prices. Since they can now earn more, the farmers have an incentive to grow more and improve the efficiency of their farms. Many farmers are using the extra money they now earn to help their villages. They have built new schools and hired new teachers, built infirmaries to help the sick, and formed community banks to lend money to other villagers. The farmers are using today's profits to help improve their villages for years to come. But Mali still faces other challenges. There have been repeated droughts in West Africa that have made crops fail and caused mass migrations of people. When this happens, Malians are forced to focus on what they will eat today, rather than what they can plant to sell tomorrow. But by investing in things like schools, banks, and other village improvements when times are good, the people of Mali are ensuring a better tomorrow for themselves. Nigeria is more than twice the size of California. The country is located on Africa's west coast, and it is bordered by the Atlantic Ocean, Benin, Niger, Chad, and Cameroon. Nigeria has one of the largest economies in Africa because it is a major producer of the world's oil. Drilling in Nigeria's large oil reserves has brought billions of dollars into the country. But oil drilling has taken a great toll on farmers living in the Niger Delta. Like about 70% of the people in Nigeria, the people in this village are farmers. Instead of machines, they use basic tools and human labor to produce palm oil, peanut oil, rubber, and cotton, as well as food for their families. Farmers and fishers in the Niger Delta have survived in this part of the world for centuries using simple tools and hard work. But oil drilling has changed the Delta and the lives of the people in the villages. Oil companies have moved large amounts of soil throughout the Delta. Removing the soil has destroyed the habitats of many animals that live in the Niger Delta. Drilling has also moved fertile soil from farms here.
What we are working on now is crude oil, not soil. This land is lost forever. For the next 1,000 years, nothing is going to grow here.
Frequent oil spills have polluted the land where the farmers grow food. Over time, many farmers and their families have become sick from exposure to escaping gases and other toxic chemicals found in oil. Some people have died from eating contaminated food.
We were known to be good farmers. We produce a lot of food. In fact, we are supposed to be the food basket of the state. But now we're importing food, not producing enough again for ourselves.
Pollutants are contaminating the Niger Delta and threatening the health of villagers who live there. But many men and women are taking steps to fight erosion and pollution in their communities. People throughout Nigeria are demanding safer drilling practices and high environmental standards from the Nigerian government.
We are going to demand our rights peacefully, non-violently, and we shall win.
People in this village are using ancient methods to preserve their farmland. Farmers here are planting several different crops at once. This protects the soil from erosion. These farmers are also relying on natural fertilizers such as manure instead of chemicals to improve the soil. Only time will tell if the Nigerian government will be able to make changes that will reduce pollution on the Niger Delta. In the meantime, many farmers, like those in this village, are working together to make sure that their way of life survives.
East Africa includes the countries that border the Red Sea and Indian Ocean: Sudan, Eritrea, Djibouti, Somalia, Kenya, and Tanzania, as well as their inland neighbors Ethiopia, Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi. This is the most mountainous region of Africa. Volcanic activity millions of years ago created spectacular variations in the landscape. Among the geographic high points are the Ethiopian highlands, which are home to 80% of Africa's tallest mountains, the Great Rift Valley stretching for about 3,000 miles, and Africa's two tallest peaks, Mount Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya. The highlands feature fertile plains where farmers grow crops and graze livestock. Kenya and Tanzania have tropical grasslands called savannas that are home to a wide variety of animals, including elephants, lions, giraffes, and hippos. The Serengeti National Park in Tanzania is one of the largest wildlife sanctuaries in the world. Tanzania can also boast of two of the most remarkable lakes in East Africa: Lake Natron, named for the salt deposits found there, and Lake Tanganyika, on the border with Congo, the longest freshwater lake in the world. Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda border Lake Victoria, the world's second largest freshwater lake and the main source of the Nile River. The majority of people in East Africa live in rural areas and they farm or raise cattle. Some, like the Maasai in Tanzania and Kenya, are still nomadic cattle herders, living as their ancestors did. In contrast, you'll find Western clothing and modern businesses in the region's largest cities of Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and Nairobi, Kenya. East Africans practice Christianity and Islam, and many speak Swahili. From the stunning mountaintops to the shores of the Indian Ocean, East Africa offers some of the greatest contrast on the continent. Burundi is located in East Central Africa, south of the equator. It borders Rwanda on the north, Tanzania on the east, Lake Tanganyika and the Democratic Republic of the Congo on the west. Burundi is slightly smaller than Maryland. The western area of the country includes the Ruzizi River and Lake Tanganyika. East of this area is mountainous, and farther east is a region of plateaus where most of the population lives. The capital of Burundi is Bujumbura. Burundi is a small, poor, and densely populated country. The economy of Burundi relies almost entirely on agriculture. Farmers grow beans, corn, plantains, and coffee, which is Burundi's chief export. The official languages of Burundi are French and Kirundi, a Bantu language. About 2/3 of the people are Christian, and the rest follow traditional beliefs. Like Rwanda, Burundi experiences tensions between the Hutu and Tutsi ethnic groups. Since 1993, approximately 200,000 Burundians have died in clashes between the two sides. Even as efforts at peace are underway, the State Department continues to warn United States citizens against travel to Burundi. The United Nations is preparing a peacekeeping force to help resolve many of the country's political problems to improve life for future Burundians.
Rwanda is a small, landlocked country lying south of the equator in East Central Africa. It is bordered by the Democratic Republic of the Congo on the west, Uganda in the north, Tanzania in the east, and Burundi in the south. Rwanda is the most densely populated country in Africa, with nearly 8 million people, more than half of whom live in poverty. Rwanda is a primarily agricultural country, with 90% of the workforce in subsistence farming. Kigali is the capital and largest town. A civil war began in 1990 between the Hutu, who account for almost 90% of the Rwandan population, and the Tutsi people. At the height of the violence in 1994, it is estimated that 800,000 Rwandans, mostly Tutsi, died. Tutsi forces defeated the Hutus and assumed control of the government in July 1994. Today, many Rwandan children are responsible for taking care of their family and raising their younger siblings because their parents died during the genocide. In addition to going to school, these children attempt to provide food, clothes, and shelter to their siblings. According to the United Nations Children's Fund, more than 100,000 children are living in households without adults. The situation in Rwanda has gained the attention of international aid organizations that are working to improve the children's quality of life and to protect their human rights. Somalia lies on what is called the Horn of Africa, bounded on the north by the Gulf of Aden and on the east by the Indian Ocean. To the west lie Kenya and Ethiopia, and to the northwest, Djibouti. Somalia has a dry climate and a semi-desert landscape covered in thorn bushes. The capital is Mogadishu, Somalia's largest city and major port, located just north of the equator on the Indian Ocean. Most Somali people are Muslim, and about half the population live a nomadic lifestyle. Although Somali is the national language, Arabic, Italian, and English are also widely spoken. Somalia has been battered by civil war for more than 10 years as rival clans and dissident factions fight for control of the country. In 1992, the war coincided with the worst African drought in a century. A devastating famine killed 300,000 Somalis. Thousands more fled to Ethiopia to escape the fighting. Many are now returning to their homeland. Though the political situation in the country is unstable, international aid organizations are attempting to improve the quality of life. Clean water, rebuilt wells and generators, as well as education, are providing relief to the long-suffering Somali people. Uganda is a landlocked country in East Africa. It is bordered by Sudan to the north, Kenya to the east, Tanzania and Rwanda to the south, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo to the west. Uganda's capital city, Kampala, is built around 7 hills near Lake Victoria, the largest lake in Africa. To the southwest lies the Bwindi Impenetrable National Park, well known for its variety of wildlife. Many types of birds and butterflies make their home in the dense jungle. But the park's best-known residents are the mountain gorillas. Uganda is home to half of the world's population of mountain gorillas, the largest and rarest of the 3 gorilla subspecies. The latest census puts the total number of mountain gorillas in the world at less than 700. Years of poaching and habitat destruction have brought the primates to the brink of extinction. Mountain gorillas are shy, and they fight only when threatened. They live in close-knit family groups of up to 30 members. A large part of the day is spent foraging for food. They eat roots, leaves, bark from trees, shrub-sized plants, and bamboo shoots. Dominant male mountain gorillas reach an average height of 6 feet tall when standing, and they can weigh up to 500 pounds. When males reach adulthood, a patch of fur on their backs lightens, and they are called silverbacks. Females are smaller, only 4 to 5 feet tall, and weigh 150 to 200 pounds. Today, mountain gorillas live only in Uganda, Rwanda, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Conservation programs are helping to protect the endangered mountain gorillas. Through a variety of methods, including population monitoring, anti-poaching activities, and habitat conservation, scientists hope that the mountain gorillas can make a comeback.
Ethiopia is a country in northeastern Africa, almost twice the size of Texas. Ethiopia is bordered by Eritrea, Sudan, Kenya, Djibouti, and Somalia. This country is one of the oldest in the world. It is also the place that 11-year-old Asbeth calls home. Like many people in this country, Asbeth and her family are farmers. The family is lucky to live in the Rift Valley, Ethiopia's most fertile area. Here, they plant coffee, sugarcane, and potatoes, and herd the family's cattle. But Asbeth's life is different from that of her father and brothers. While they work in the fields, Asbeth has to find water, a precious resource in this landlocked country. Today, Asbeth has been lucky enough to find water close to her family's village. But droughts and water shortages happen all the time in the Rift Valley, and it's only a matter of time before this well dries up. Finding water is just one of Asbeth's chores. The family also depends on her to help her mother cook, clean, and look after her younger brothers and sisters. Bread is an important part of the Ethiopian diet. In order to make the bread, Asbeth must crush wheat by hand with a large grinding stone. It sometimes takes hours before the wheat grains are fine enough to be made into bread. Asbeth's home in Ethiopia's Rift Valley is one of the most fertile areas in the country. But frequent droughts can turn the Rift Valley from a rich garden into a barren desert. And the constant grazing of herd animals can erode the land. Droughts have forced Asbeth and families like hers to leave their homes in order to get food that has been flown in from other countries. But unlike many Ethiopians, Asbeth and her family have hope. The seasons are changing, and it looks as if there will be good rainfall this year. And with rations and foreign food aid, the family will have enough food to last until next harvest. Asbeth's family will depend on her work until she is married. Then she'll have to make a life for her new family. But for today, she and other girls like her carry on as they have for generations in Ethiopia's fertile Rift Valley. Kenya is located in East Africa. It is twice the size of Nevada and is bordered by Ethiopia, Somalia, Tanzania, Uganda, Sudan, and the Indian Ocean. Kenya is also a place where people grow a special crop called French beans. Each year, Kenyan farmers grow so many of these beans that millions of pounds can be sold to restaurants in the United Kingdom, Germany, and especially France. Beans are a billion-dollar business in this African country, but farmers haven't always grown French beans in Kenya. In the early 1900s, settlers from Europe built huge plantations where farmers grew coffee and tea for sale to countries in Europe. Crops that are grown only for sale are known as cash crops. So much of the land was used for coffee and tea production during this time that there was little room for native Kenyans to grow fruits and vegetables. But when native Kenyans won their independence from Great Britain in 1963, they regained control of their land and which crops could be grown there. Today, almost 8 million Kenyans work in agriculture. Most grow food on small farms, which provide food for the farmers and their families. Nearly 70% of Kenya's population are farmers. Many cultivate beans for sale to foreign countries. Growing beans for export is one of the easiest ways for farmers to make money.
She can pick up to 10 cartons of beans
a day.
And one carton, she is paid 6 shillings. So she can make 60 shillings in harvesting beans in one day.
However, getting beans to the marketplace can be a big problem for local farmers. Many Kenyans live in scattered farms, miles away from the large urban areas of Nairobi, the capital of Kenya, and the port city Mombasa. Instead of traveling themselves, many Kenyan farmers sell their bean crops to companies that send vegetables to other countries. Kenyan farmers use some of their money to build schools and to make old factories more modern. But just how much money these farmers get depends on the quality of their crops. Drought and flooding during the rainy season can easily destroy crops on Kenyan farms. Water pollution from pesticides and fertilizers, soil erosion from planting too often, and the process of desertification, where fertile lands become desert, are also threatening bean crops in Kenya. Despite environmental problems, the bean that has made this country an agricultural powerhouse keeps growing and making its way through Africa, Europe, and beyond. "500 miles east of Madagascar, in the Indian Ocean, lies the tiny island nation of Mauritius. The entire land area here is less than 800 square miles, slightly larger than half the size of Rhode Island. Like other islands this size, Mauritius has struggled to overcome the obstacles of being both small and isolated, with limited natural resources. Europeans occupied Mauritius for 4 centuries, farming the island's main crop, sugarcane. Mauritians finally won their independence in 1968, but their trouble was far from over. Many lived in poverty. The economy struggled largely because Mauritius had to buy everything it consumed from outsiders. Everything, that is, except sugar. Sugarcane blankets the island, and even today grows on 90% of the cultivated land. This complete reliance on one crop meant disaster for Mauritius if bad weather ruined the harvest, or if world demand for sugar dropped. But Mauritius reversed its fortunes in the 1980s by modeling itself after a small but successful island nation, Taiwan. Like Taiwan, Mauritius began offering profitable reasons, such as tax breaks, for businesses to relocate there, and those businesses provided jobs. Mauritius recognized that its greatest resource was its own people. The sugar industry had brought together many cultures: Indians, Europeans, Africans, and Chinese. This industrious population proved attractive to businesses, like textile and clothing manufacturers, who need lots of workers. After living in poverty for years, Mauritians were willing to work even for low wages. More than 9,000 businesses relocated to Mauritius, transforming the economy from agricultural to industrial. Sugarcane now accounts for just a fourth of the country's exports. As Mauritius began to pull itself out of poverty, some citizens became entrepreneurs, people who start their own businesses. Some opened textile manufacturing companies. Others recognized the export value of other crops, like chilies and exotic flowers. Mauritius also turns its relative isolation into a strength. Tourists now flock to this beautiful island as a tropical getaway. A thriving tourism industry has created even more jobs. The poverty level of Mauritius today is only 10%. An island once struggling to stay afloat is now a shining example of unity, diversity, and industry.
The United Republic of Tanzania is located in eastern Africa and is bordered by Mozambique, Malawi, Zambia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya, and the Indian Ocean. Tanzania is slightly larger than twice the size of California and is home to more than 37 million people. The northern border of Tanzania is dominated by Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria is the second largest freshwater lake in the world. It's also one of the main sources of water for the Nile River. Because only 4% of Tanzania's land is usable for farming, Lake Victoria is an important source of food and money for the people who live here. About 30 million people in Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya make their living off of the lake. Fish are plentiful, and some 50,000 fishermen operate on the Tanzanian side of the lake. Their primary catch is Nile perch. Despite its name, the Nile perch is not a native species here. It was introduced in the late 1950s. The Nile perch is a hungry predator that feeds mainly on smaller fish and can grow up to 6 feet long and weigh up to 300 pounds. While the perch in Lake Victoria are generally much smaller, they make up about 80% of each day's catch. A decade ago, the Nile perch were only caught to feed Tanzanians. Today, Nile perch fishing is big business, and the fish are in high demand overseas. Before they can be sold, the fish must be gutted, sorted, and dried in the sun so that they can be transported in the tropical heat. Many local people have formed market trading collectives that run the fish markets and oversee daily deliveries. Although the perch have benefited the fishermen and exporters, many others fear that the perch and the fishing industry that has been built around them may be doing more harm than good. Hundreds of native species in the lake have been killed off by the perch. And the perch themselves are getting smaller because they are running out of food. Also, as more fishing companies and people move to the area, they are removing the vegetation around the lake and further damaging the environment. But, for the present, the lake is still a vital resource for the livelihood of the local people. If they can make sure that it stays healthy, the people of Tanzania will be able to keep making a living off of Lake Victoria.
Southern and Central Africa consist of 20 countries, including the island states of Mauritius, Madagascar, and Comoros off the southeastern coast, and the smallest country in Africa, the island of São Tomé and Príncipe, located off the west coast. On the mainland, Central Africa is usually defined as the Central African Republic, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Congo, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Cameroon, though Cameroon is often designated as part of Western Africa. Southern Africa includes Angola, Zambia, Malawi, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, and South Africa, as well as two countries surrounded by South Africa, Lesotho and Swaziland. One of the most spectacular geographic features in Southern Africa is Victoria Falls on the Zambezi River. Located on the Zambia-Zimbabwe border, the falls are a part of two national parks. The falls are the widest in the world, nearly a mile across, with a drop of 355 feet at their steepest point. There are many indigenous groups in Central and Southern Africa. One of these is the San. There are more than 85,000 San who make their home in the Kalahari Desert of Namibia and Botswana. The San were originally nomadic hunters and gatherers. While a few still live this lifestyle, others have found a way to continue to live off the land by working for cattle ranchers. Central and Southern Africa are also rich in natural resources. The Democratic Republic of the Congo has large deposits of copper, cobalt, and many other minerals. South Africa is the world's largest producer of platinum, gold, and chromium, and it has rich diamond mines. The people of Central and Southern Africa are as varied as the landscape. Together, they make these regions two of the most distinct and beautiful places on Earth.
This is South Africa. The country sits on the southern tip of the African continent between the Atlantic and Indian Oceans. South Africa is almost twice the size of Texas. It borders 5 nations: Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Swaziland. It also surrounds the tiny country of Lesotho. South Africa is also a place where a social, political, and economic system called apartheid kept white people separate from non-white people. Many white South Africans had been separated from non-whites since 1910, when the country won its independence from Great Britain. But this separation wasn't made legal until 1948, when the all-white South African government voted to support and enforce apartheid. Apartheid laws allowed whites to get top positions in government, as well as good jobs, nice homes, and a high standard of living. But people of African, Asian, and multiracial descent had a lower standard of living and were treated as foreigners in their own country. The apartheid law segregated schools, restaurants, movie theaters, and all other public facilities by race. Non-white South Africans were not allowed to vote or participate in politics. Millions were even forced to live in segregated areas and even relocated to places in distant parts of the country called reserves or homelands. KwaZulu, Ciskei, and Vinda were self-governing reserves. But erosion and poor quality soil made farming the lands difficult. The reserves could not support the people who lived there. Beginning in the 1950s and early 1960s, Nelson Mandela and members of the African National Congress protested against apartheid. Mandela was put in jail for 27 years because he resisted apartheid. During this time, his popularity grew around the world and millions of people protested to demand his freedom. In 1990, protests against apartheid by governments, businesses, and people around the world and within South Africa itself finally forced South Africa's president to demand Nelson Mandela's release from prison and the end of apartheid. Nelson Mandela was elected president of South Africa in 1994, and his government worked to give equal rights to Africans of all races.
Let us forget the past. Let us now work together to make this country a great country.
Since then, many Africans who had been forced to live on reserves and work in low-paying jobs have returned to the cities. They have found jobs as police officers, government administrators, and civil servants. Non-whites have also had access to higher education, opportunities in law, medicine, and business. Equal education, healthcare, and opportunities for a better life are now available to all South Africans by law. But many people in South Africa are unemployed, and a large number of non-whites continue to live in poverty. Apartheid is a thing of the past, and the changing face of the nation assures South Africa a bright future.
Located on the Atlantic coast of southern Africa, Angola is bordered by the Democratic Republic of the Congo to the north and northeast, Zambia to the east, and Namibia to the south. Angola also includes a small wedge of coastal territory within the Republic of the Congo. Angola's capital is Luanda. Portuguese is the official language of this former colony of Portugal, but people speak dozens of other local languages, including 6 recognized as national languages. Civil war and unrest have dominated Angolan life since the mid-1970s, turning the country into one of the poorest in the world. 4 major ports sit along the coast, but all have been hurt by the fighting and economic decline. Subsistence agriculture employs about 85% of Angola's 12 million people. Some have also found work in emerging industries. Oil production is the one bright spot in the Angolan economy. It is the second largest producer of oil in sub-Saharan Africa. But few have benefited from this. Most Angolans live in extreme poverty. More than half the population is illiterate, and life expectancy is less than 40 years. Angola also has the second highest child mortality rate in the world. Almost 1/3 of all children born there die before they turn 5 years old. But there is hope on the horizon. With the new peace agreement and the help of relief organizations, many are optimistic that Angola will at last be able to refocus its efforts to meet the country's humanitarian and developmental needs.
Zambia is a landlocked country in south-central Africa. It is bordered by the Democratic Republic of the Congo to the north, Tanzania to the northeast, Malawi and Mozambique to the east, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Namibia to the south, and Angola to the west. The Zambezi River forms a natural border between Zambia and Zimbabwe. Along one section of the river, part of the Zambezi Valley has been flooded to create the massive Lake Kariba. The lake was formed when a dam was built farther north on the Zambezi to provide hydroelectric power for the growing industries of Zimbabwe and Zambia. The dam, constructed between 1955 and 1959, is still one of the world's largest. At the time of its completion, Lake Kariba was the largest artificial lake in the world. It covers about 2,000 square miles and contains many islands. The creation of the lake forced resettlement of about 50,000 members of the Batonka tribe, a group that had lived for centuries along the Zambezi River. The dam also threatened the area's wildlife habitats. To rescue animals trapped by the rising lake waters, authorities launched Operation Noah in 1960. They rescued more than 5,000 animals from 35 species, including 44 endangered black rhinos. Today, Lake Kariba has become a popular tourist destination, as well as a source of water for the wildlife in the surrounding nature reserves. Mozambique is a country of over 16 million people in Southeast Africa. It borders the Indian Ocean in the east, South Africa and Swaziland in the south, Zimbabwe in the west, Zambia and Malawi in the northwest, and Tanzania in the north. Mozambique's coastline is home to several natural harbors. The Zambezi River provides the country with hydroelectric power. Almost half of Mozambique's people follow traditional religious beliefs. Of the remaining population, 30% are Roman Catholics and 20% are Muslims. Portuguese is the official language, although less than a quarter of the people speak it. Various Bantu languages are most common. Maputo is the capital and largest city. Mozambique is one of the world's poorest countries. 90% of the population lives on less than $1 a day. The economy is driven by agriculture, with most workers living and farming in the country's most fertile areas along Mozambique's main rivers. That often leaves them at the mercy of the weather. Since 2000, the country has been hit by a series of devastating floods and droughts. In February of 2000, severe storms dumped 18 inches of rain on Mozambique's Maputo province. As a result, the Limpopo and Changani river valleys experienced severe flooding. 700 people died in the floods, and hundreds of thousands fled their homes and villages. The disasters came at a time when Mozambique was beginning to turn its economy around. Now the government has had to make new appeals for international assistance in order to re-establish its economy and infrastructure. With hundreds of millions of dollars in foreign aid, the citizens of Mozambique are once again working to recover and rebuild their country. Zimbabwe is bordered on the north by Zambia, on the northeast and east by Mozambique, on the south by South Africa, and on the southwest and west by Botswana. Harare is the capital and largest city. The country's eastern highlands region is a narrow mountainous belt along the Mozambique border, where Mount Inyangani stands as the highest point in Zimbabwe. More than 12 million people live in Zimbabwe. English is the official language of the government, but 2/3 of the people speak Shona, a Bantu language, as their first language. Victoria Falls is one of Zimbabwe's great attractions. This waterfall is almost twice as wide and twice as deep as Niagara Falls. The falls stretch over more than 5,500 feet with a drop of 350 feet into the Zambezi Gorge. The word Zimbabwe means big house of stone, fact, Zimbabwe's landscape is characterized by ancient rock that is between 570 million and 3.8 billion years old. Zimbabwe's economy is based primarily on agriculture. Its chief cash crop is tobacco. It is also rich in a wide variety of mineral resources. After tobacco, gold is the country's second most important export. But gold is also mined illegally and sold on the black market. Unregulated small-scale gold panning is causing major environmental damage in Zimbabwe, leading to deforestation, the buildup of silt in rivers, and the destruction of wildlife habitats. Making matters worse, drought conditions in Zimbabwe have reduced crop production. Frustrated farmers are increasingly joining the illegal search for gold to help feed their families. Environmentalists have urged the government of Zimbabwe to deal with the illegal gold panning and trade. Together, they are working to improve Zimbabwe's environment and economy.
Botswana is located in central southern Africa. It is bordered by Namibia on the west and north, by Zambia for just a few hundred yards in the north, by Zimbabwe on the northeast, and by South Africa on the southeast and south. Botswana meets Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe in the middle of the Chobe River, so the actual border has never been precisely determined. Gaborone is Botswana's capital and largest city. The Kalahari, a large sand-covered plain, covers 70% of the country. Grass and thorn scrub grow during the rainy season, so animal grazing and agriculture is possible in some areas. The Kalahari is home to large herds of game animals. Antelope such as eland, gemsbok, springbok, and steenbok live here, as well as giraffes, wildebeest, the black-backed jackal, warthogs, and many other small animals. The Kalahari is also home to the San people. The San are descendants of the original inhabitants of eastern, central, and southern Africa. At the turn of the 21st century, the majority of the San's remaining 100,000 were living in Botswana's western Kalahari. The San live in round thatched grass structures. They speak dialects of what are called click languages, noted for the audible clicking sounds that are part of their pronunciation. A few still follow a traditional nomadic lifestyle. Living in small family groups, they possess only what they can carry and move in search of food. They use poison arrowheads to hunt game. Today, these indigenous people are coping with changing population and economic conditions. They struggle to remain independent and to determine their own future in Botswana's increasingly modern society.
Namibia is located on the southwestern coast of Africa. It is bordered by Angola to the north, Zambia to the northeast, Botswana to the east, South Africa to the southeast and south, and the Atlantic Ocean to the west. The country has 4 main geographical regions: the arid and barren Namib Desert, which runs along the entire Atlantic coast, an extensive central plateau, the western fringes of the Kalahari Desert in the east, and an alluvial plain in the north created by the sediment left from a massive lake that dried up thousands of years ago. The capital and largest city of Namibia is Windhoek. Most of Namibia's nearly 319,000 square miles are empty land. The Namib Desert has been arid for more than 80 million years. Its sand dunes are the highest in the world. Germany annexed the country, then known as Southwest Africa, in 1884. After World War I, control passed to South Africa. Finally, in 1990, Namibia achieved its independence. The town of Swakopmund, located on the Atlantic coast, reminds inhabitants and visitors of Namibia's days under German rule. An oasis-like city of green palm trees and old historic buildings, Swakopmund is a seaside resort between the ocean and the desert. Fishing has become a major part of Namibia's economy because the Atlantic waters off the Namibian coast are clean and rich in nutrients. Even oysters are raised in fish farms in Swakopmund. These oysters are exported to large markets in South Africa and Europe. North of the city lies Etosha National Park, one of the best-known game reserves in the world. Each year, during the brief rainy season, tens of thousands of pelicans and flamingos can be found feeding on the algae that blooms here. Despite its harsh desert environment, Namibia is a place of natural diversity and beauty.